I think we all know what an interview is. If you have a job, there's a good chance you had to have an interview to get it. For our purpose, an interview is a way to get information and/or opinions from a person or a group of people in the workplace. There are three types of interviews: structured, unstructured, and semi-structured. In a structured interview, there are a set of questions that are gone over. There's little room for off-topic discussion that might lead to other tangents. An unstructured interview is the opposite. While there are a set of questions, it is fine to see where a question may go with input for the participants. A semi-structured interview is a combination of the two. Generally, a structured interview is too rigid to yield the results that are looked for, while the unstructured interview might give too much information in one area, but not enough in another, or might simply take too long if things get off track too much. The key to a successful interview is the person conducting the interview. They need to know when to stop a discussion and go to the next question, and when to expand upon a question if it is warranted.
Interviewing can be broken into three general categories: structured, semi-structured, and unstructured. The primary difference between the types of interviews are the types of questions. A structured interview will have predefined questions. Often these questions will be closed-ended questions allowing only yes or no answers without further explanation. These interviews allow the interviewer to have more control over the direction of the interview and are preferred for the collection of quantitative data. On the other end of the spectrum are unstructured interviews. These interviews do not contain predefined questions and are more conversational. Due to the conversational nature of this sort of interview, the interviewer has less control over the direction. These interviews are better suited to collecting qualitative data but can be more time-consuming. Semi-structured interviews are a mix of structured and unstructured interviews with some predefined questions while allowing some spontaneous questions to probe for additional information.
Conducting an interview is a fairly straightforward process, and this is the elicitation technique with which most of you will be most familiar with, having done them yourselves. First, put thought into the questions that you will be asking. This is essential with structured interviews, as you'll be asking specifically designed questions. Always be friendly and open-minded with the participants. No one wants to feel like they're under a microscope. Participants that feel comfortable with you will be more likely to give you good data. And remember to be respectful of your participants' time. There are many different ways to record your data, but do so discreetly. Writing tablets, audio recording devices, and cameras are all wonderful tools to record data, but they do have the side effect of making the participants nervous. And if a participant is nervous, they will give you poor data results. You want to make them as comfortable as possible. It is always best to ask open-ended questions and to allow for some follow-up questions to clarify their answers. This is particularly important with semi-structured and unstructured interviews. Talk less than the interviewee because you want their input after all, and not yours. And lastly, always thank the participant for their time.
The great thing about doing interviews is they are usually inexpensive to do and can be very effective. They're also very simple to set up. It is up to the interviewer to create an atmosphere where the participants feel open to sharing their opinions and observations. Once this atmosphere has been established, the participants should feel comfortable enough to have back and forth dialogues on the topics presented. While this is going on, it is up to the interviewer to understand when it is appropriate to ask more detailed questions to clarify things. It is also the responsibility of the interviewer to ensure that the focus is maintained so things do not get too far off topic. One aspect of the interview that is not readily apparent is that while the interview is going on, there is the opportunity to observe nonverbal cues displayed by the participants. Sometimes the nonverbal behavior can be more telling than when people are actually talking.
There are several downsides to interviewing, the most significant likely being the amount of time and effort it takes to gather a quantity of data compared to other elicitation techniques. There are trade-offs to be made with interviewing. Interviewing the number of people necessary to gather a large quantity of data takes a substantial investment of time. Interviewing groups of people at once saves time but can reduce the quality of the data. The interviewer should invest time and resources into training to make the interviews more effective. In addition to everything else, the people being interviewed are subject to their own biases, which makes reaching a consensus inside a group difficult.
We recommend interviewing for the following scenarios. One, if you want to collect detailed data, the user data can provide many powerful insights the designing team may not have thought about. Unexpected turns in the interview process can lead to new, better designs. We suggest interviewing if you're collecting data to design a survey or other usability activity. You can interview a few stakeholders to get an idea of what questions would be most useful in a survey that would then be used to target a more widespread audience. Useful insights into usability of a prototype or a design could be easily had through interviewing. A participant can give a visceral response to design elements that they enjoy or hate. We'd also suggest interviews if you are looking for a full whole view system view. Participants can give narrow and wide range feedback that can lead to new innovations and design ideas. We would not encourage the use of interviews if you're trying to collect data rapidly. It takes time to properly interview participants, and it takes resources from employees and the participants themselves. We also would not suggest this if you are going to be collecting large samples of data. Single digits, tens of participants might be ideal for interviews, but if you're dealing in the hundreds or thousands of interviews, this will become extremely costly for the organization. Other elicitation techniques such as surveys or questionnaires would be better suited for these larger sample sizes.
Doing some informal interviews, we discovered that most people have to-do lists or have used them in the past. Most have them on their phones, but many times they do not use them consistently or just forget about them completely. The things people look for are easy list creations. If it is difficult, they simply will not use them. People also want to be reminded of things, so they want timers to jot their memory of upcoming tasks so they do not forget them. Another important aspect is being able to assign priorities of tasks that need to be done. Having everything equally important is counterproductive. Everything is not equally important that needs to be done, so there needs to be some way to differentiate between different tasks. It is important also to be able to share tasks with others, especially co-workers and or family. It just depends on what is to be done. Lastly, when we asked about allowing the To-Do app to have access to personal calendars, contacts, and locations, most people did not feel comfortable allowing the To-Do app access to contacts and locations.